In 2005, the trailer for the Michael Bay action film The Island was released. Fans of B-movies quickly spotted the similarities between this and the 1979 sci-fi horror film, Parts: The Clonus Horror. Mystery Science Theater 3000 fans especially noticed this because the movie made for one of the best episodes of the show. Fans contacted director Robert Fiveson about the film and circulated a petition pointing out that the movie shamelessly ripped off Clonus and did not pay anyone involved in the original for the remake rights. Out of curiosity, Fiveson wanted to check out The Island to see if all this fuss had any merit. While obviously the film had much higher production values, The Island cost $126 million, and Clonus was only $257,000, it was clear that they ripped it off. Fiveson filed suit against DreamWorks, and in 2006, the court ruled that it would go to trial. The director showed a staggering 103 points of similarity to the court between Clonus and The Island.
In our papers showed that there were 103 points of striking similarity.
Fearing a painfully expensive lawsuit, DreamWorks settled and paid a substantial rumored seven-figure fee to cover the remake rights. So what are these 103 similarities? The file is sealed, so no one outside the involved party knows for sure. However, just by watching the films, you can pick up on elements and themes that have obviously been lifted. Let's break it into three sections. The basic plot, similarities, and yes, there even were some things they did different, so I'll point out the differences. While it may seem nitpicky at first, when you see the quantity of these lined up, it's hard to argue it's just a coincidence. Clonus is about Richard, one of many people living in a closed-off, highly structured compound. The people in the compound are told the outside world is contaminated, but one day, when they're ready, they'll be sent to America, where the environment is clean and they will have a happy life. Richard discovers that he and the others are really clones, being bred so that the person they're cloned from, mostly politicians and rich people, can harvest their organs once theirs fail, ensuring they'll live well beyond when they should. Richard tells his beautiful friend Lena, and he escapes the facility to try to notify the outside world of what's going on. The Island is about Lincoln 6 Echo, one of many people living in a closed-off, highly structured compound. The people in the compound are told the outside world is contaminated, but one day they may win the lottery and will be sent to the island, where the environment is clean and they'll live a happy life. Lincoln discovers that he and the others are really clones being bred so that the person they're cloned from, mostly politicians and rich people, can harvest their organs when theirs fail, ensuring they'll live well beyond when they should. Lincoln tells his beautiful friend Jordan 2 Delta, and they escape the facility to try to notify the outside world of what's going on. That's just the structure. Now let's get into the meat of this. In Clonus, the facility is a secret location funded by the Illuminati. In The Island, the facility is a secret location funded by the government. In both movies, the clones are kept in plastic storage bags. In both movies, they're told about America and the island by a calm female voiceover.
Qualification, that magic time when you enter America.
Starkweather 2 Delta. Your time has come. You're moving out to the island.
In Clonus, the security guards are all wearing dark blue tracksuits and communicate through headgear. In The Island, the security guards are all wearing black tracksuits and are communicating through headgear. In Clonus, the clones are all wearing officially licensed Adidas tracksuits and are designated in groups by color. In The Island, the clones are all wearing officially licensed Puma tracksuits and are designated in groups by colored stripes on their suit. In Clonus, they track the clones by tagging them with an earring. In The Island, they track the clones by tagging them with a wristband. In both movies, the clones of certain groups are not allowed to come into contact with each other.
Section 8, north.
This is Riley. Two controls accidentally met on rural sector 6. Please advise.
Separate them as quickly as possible. Identify for future deprogramming.
Please separate. Find your seats now.
You two. Watch your proximity.
In Clonus, Richard was bred to have an above-average intelligence, which makes him ask questions, eventually leading to his escape. In The Island, Lincoln has a genetic disorder, which causes him to have an above-average intelligence, and makes him ask questions, eventually leading to his escape. In Clonus, Richard finds a beer can, which got through the filtration system. This is what sparks his curiosity. In The Island, Lincoln finds a bug that somehow got through the filtration system. This is what sparks his curiosity. In both movies, most of the clones are being kept docile like children.
What's the bet?
Never mind, just put your helmet on and let's go.
Get up and help me find Sally.
Both movies have the clones doing monotonous busy work when they aren't exercising. In both movies, the clones are brainwashed. Both movies have a gratuitous sex scene. Both movies, they eat in a cafeteria. In Clonus, Richard asks the other clones questions about the facility and is frustrated that none of them care. In The Island, Lincoln asks the other clones questions about the facility and is frustrated that none of them care. In both movies, the facility does the best to keep their clones healthy. In Clonus, after a wrestling match, Richard's friend George is chosen to go to America. In the island, after a virtual boxing match, Lincoln's friend Jordan wins the island lottery. In Clonus, one night Richard sneaks out and finds evidence of what's really going on. In the island, one night Lincoln sneaks out and finds evidence of what's really going on. In Clonus, Richard finds Milwaukee on a map, which ties back to the old Milwaukee beer can that he found. In the island, Lincoln finds a Route 39 street sign, which ties back to the matchbox he found. In Clonus, Richard gets in an elevator, escapes through a sub-basement, fights off a guard, and heads out through a large drain pipe into the desert. In the island, Lincoln and Jordan get in an elevator, escape through a sub-basement, fight off a guard, and head out through a large drain pipe into the desert. In both movies, once outside, they climb a cliff to get a sweeping long shot of their surroundings. In both movies, they wander aimlessly through the city while being chased. In Clonus, Richard steals a bicycle to get away and crashes. In the island, Lincoln steals a hover bike to get away and crashes. In both movies, they set out to find the original person they were cloned from, which initially seemed to want to help, but end up betraying them. In Clonus, Richard goes to report the facility to the news, with the original Richard's son Ricky in this really unusual expensive sports car. In the island, Lincoln goes to report the facility to the news with Tom in this really unusual expensive sports car. In Clonus, we see Jeff Knight, who has a clone on the facility and is running for president. Part of this scene is viewed through a television. In the island, we see the current president, and his clone is a friend of Lincoln. This scene is also viewed through a television. In both movies, while escaping, they find the mass clone storage banks. In both movies, Lena and Jordan are wearing a flowing white gown. Both movies use similar camera angles for the same scenes. Both movies focus on the bone saw when doing surgery on the clones. In both movies, they ask questions in a phone booth. In Clonus, Jack, a reporter, brings Richard in to help him. In the island, James, Lincoln's non-clone friend from the facility, brings him in to help him. In both movies, when the clones are being readied for storage, they hook them up to tubes and pump them full of green fluid. In Clonus, they blow up the old couple for helping Richard. In the island, they shoot James for helping Lincoln. In Clonus, Richard finds George dead, which lets him know that there is no America. In the island, Lincoln sees Starkwater trying to escape from being harvested, which lets him know that there is no island. In both movies, they decide to go to the media to expose the facility. Now on to the differences. In Clonus, the clones are born as children. In the island, they're born as adults. In Clonus, Richard takes a tape explaining the cloning procedure as evidence of what's going on in the facility. In the island, Lincoln tries to take Tom and use their exact DNA as evidence of what's going on at the facility. In the island, Jordan's real half is a model named Sarah that was in an accident and had 48 hours to live before she died. Since they didn't recover Jordan in time, Sarah died. In Clonus, we never found out about Lena's counterpart. In the island, women can pay to have their clones carry a baby to term for them, and there was nothing like this in Clonus. In Clonus, Richard finds the original Richard, but he's much older and didn't know he was cloned. His brother Jeff, the politician, did it without his knowledge. The older Richard almost betrays his clone, but his son lectures him out of it. In the island, Lincoln and Tom are both about the same age. Because he knew he was dying, Tom never intended to help Lincoln. In Clonus, Richard escapes but isn't able to rescue Lena. In the end, he goes back to get her, but she's been lobotomized. The guards take Richard and harvest his organs. The movie ends with Jeff getting ready to give his speech, but is interrupted by the media and the police that have seen the tape. So it's a very bittersweet ending. In the island, Lincoln manages to escape with Jordan. They head back to the facility at the end to rescue the other clones. They free the clones, kill the evil Dr. Merrick, and destroy the compound. Since Tom and Sarah are both dead, Lincoln and Jordan take over their lives and ride a $1 million boat off into the sunset. So as you can see, the owners of parts the Clonus horror had every right to go after DreamWorks. Even though the island took gigantic chunks from Clonus, because of the higher production, it does manage to set itself slightly apart. Clonus is a sci-fi horror film, while the island is sci-fi action. So much so that the island runs 46 minutes longer. Also, they could cram in lots of car chases, gunfights, and so on. I don't hate the island, I think it's one of Michael Bay's better films. Even though Mystery Science Theater 3000 lampooned it, I prefer Clonus. It makes up for its low budget by having a good mystery and a well-paced story throughout. Also, they went for the bittersweet ending instead of the overwhelmingly happy ending of The Island. Both movies have their merits, but in the end, regardless of whether or not Bay knew the idea was stolen, I'm glad 5 Cent received some sort of compensation. Although with Bay's production budgets, 5 Cent's settlement was probably less than a week of craft services.
Everything's gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about it. You mind if I just read the sports page?
I wasn't disturbing you.
Going on.
Hey everyone, I just want to remind you, I have a Patreon set up. If you like the show and would like to help keep me going, even $1 a month would make a difference. I would really appreciate it. I've got some cool rewards set up, so check it out. Thanks a lot.